"You're going straight to hell," I said after watching him threaten someone. He nodded. "Save me a seat?" The tool catches on the chapel's threshold, and I feel it tear. Not a delicate whisper, but a violent rip that echoes like a gunshot through the silence I've just shattered. My mother's voice is still spiraling somewhere behind me. A note of disbelief turned to panic, and Vance's footsteps are coming faster now, heavy shoes on marble that sound like a countdown. I don't look back. The rain hits like a slap the moment I burst through the church doors into the Portland evening, and the white gown transforms instantly from bridal perfection into something waterlogged and desperate. My heels, Louboutins because even my fear wears designer, slip on the wet steps, and I stumble, catch myself on the iron railing, feel the metal cold against my palm, like a promise that the world is exactly as unforgiving as I've suddenly realized it is. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for the mask to crack. The wedding was supposed to happen 6 months ago, but then Vance had wanted to wait, wanted to get the timing right professionally, wanted me to understand how important this was to his career trajectory. I'd smiled through it, told my therapist I was being supportive, convinced myself that a man who planned this far in advance was a man who cared about the future. About us. But the future he was planning didn't include me as a wife. It included me as an asset, a pawn positioned next to a man he'd been studying for 2 years, my college boyfriend's cousin, someone I'd dated briefly at 19 and hadn't thought about since. Someone Vance had researched so thoroughly that he'd planned an entire engagement around the connection. The realization came Monday morning when I accidentally opened his laptop, looking for airline confirmations. The files were right there, unsecured, careless in the way that only guilty men become. Photographs of my family's political connections, notes about my father's law firm, contact lists color-coded by usefulness, and in the center of everything, a document titled Cora Asset Profile, with highlights in yellow, my social circles, my access points, my value measured in strategic proximity to people who mattered. I'd asked him about it over dinner. Calmly, rationally, giving him every chance to explain it away. His response had been a raised voice I'd never heard before, low and lethal, the way a storm sounds just before it breaks. "You don't need to understand everything, Cora. You need to trust me." The words came wrapped in something that looked like concern, but felt like a hand closing around my throat. When I'd pressed, when I'd said I didn't want to marry someone who'd built our relationship on lies, he'd gone very still, then he'd smiled. "You'll do what I tell you to do, and you'll smile while you do it, because your mother's already told 300 people you're marrying me on Saturday, and I'm not going to be humiliated by a girl who's too stupid to understand what's being done for her benefit." I'd known in that moment what I was looking at. The mask falling away and the mechanism beneath. All gears and no heart. So I ran. Now the rain is soaking through the tool, weighing it down, and my phone is buzzing constantly in the hidden pocket Vance never knew about because I'd learned, somewhere between Monday and Friday, to keep secrets from him the way he'd kept them from me. My mother, bridesmaids, his mother probably screaming about the scandal. I mute it all and keep moving, because stopping means he catches up, and I'm not entirely sure he won't do something terrible the moment he has me alone. The streets of downtown Portland are a maze I don't know well enough, and my heels are useless on wet pavement. I consider abandoning them, but there's something about the weight of them that keeps me grounded, keeps me feeling like I'm still me, and not just a ghost in a ruined wedding dress. The alley between 5th and 6th is dark, recessed, the kind of place that used to scare me. Now it looks like salvation. I slip into it, pressing myself against the brick wall of a closed storefront, and try to breathe in a way that doesn't feel like drowning. My heart is a hammer. My dress is ice cold against my skin. Somewhere behind me, I hear Vance's voice calling my name like it's a question he expects me to answer. That's when I see the car. It materializes through the rain like something imagined, low and sleek, and impossibly black, the kind of vehicle that announces wealth and danger in equal measure. The tinted windows are impenetrable, and the engine purrs with the sound of money spent on things that kill quietly. Every instinct I have is screaming that this is worse, that I've traded one predator for another, but my legs don't listen to my brain anymore. My hand is already opening the door. I slip inside and close it just as Vance's figure passes the alley entrance. His phone pressed to his ear, looking furious and lost. The interior smells like leather and sandalwood and something darker underneath. Gunpowder, maybe, or the particular scent of violence that I will later learn to identify the way other women identify their husband's cologne. The car is silent except for the rain against glass. The driver's seat is empty, and the tinted partition that separates the front from the back is solidly closed. I'm alone, or I think I am until the car pulls smoothly away from the curb and begins moving through the rain-slicked streets with the confidence of someone who knows every route in this city. My breath is coming fast, panic and relief warring for control of my nervous system. I could scream. I could try the door. The partition rolls down. He's turned slightly in the driver's seat, angled toward me in a way that suggests this wasn't accidental, that he saw me stumbling through the rain in a destroyed wedding dress and made a conscious choice to stop. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes the color of ink or storm clouds or something older than either. He's wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, and there's a scar that cuts through his left eyebrow like punctuation. "You're soaking wet," he says, and his voice is low. Thunder rolled into a room. "You'll catch pneumonia in that dress." I stare at him. My tongue isn't working properly. The rain is still drumming against the car's roof, and somewhere in the city, Vance is probably calling everyone he knows, already crafting a narrative where I'm unstable, unreliable, crazy. The lies are probably already spreading like spilled wine. "I'm sorry," I manage. "I didn't mean to. Your car was just there, and I needed—" He glances at me in the rearview mirror, and something shifts in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or hunger. "Where are we going?" The question breaks something in me. I'm not going anywhere. I don't have a plan beyond escape, and the realization is crystallizing now, that I'm sitting in a locked car with a stranger who has the particular composure of someone accustomed to being obeyed. I should be more afraid than I am. "I don't know," I whisper. He nods like this is acceptable, and returns his attention to the road. We drive in silence for 3 minutes, maybe 5. The city slides past the windows like a dream I'm not sure I'm supposed to wake from. And then he takes a turn I don't anticipate, down a street that's darker than the others, and pulls smoothly to the curb in front of what looks like a warehouse. My heart stops. "What are we—" "Wait here." He's already opening the driver's door. This will take 5 minutes. I watch him unfold from the car with the particular grace of someone trained in violence. No wasted motion, every step purposeful. He's taller than I initially registered, and broader, and there's something in the way he moves that suggests he's never been surprised by anything in his entire life. He approaches the warehouse, raps his knuckles against the metal door in a pattern I'll later learn is a code, and the door opens. A man emerges. He's on his knees before the car has time to settle. I watch through the rain-streaked window as the stranger speaks, and the kneeling man begins to cry. Not sobbing, not theatrically, but with the particular desperation of someone who's just realized he's going to die. The stranger's voice carries steady and final. "Tell Constantine if he touches my people again, I won't send warnings. I'll send widows." The words land like a physical thing. This isn't a threat delivered with anger or passion. It's stated like a mathematical certainty, as if he's explaining the formula for compound interest to someone who should already know it. The kneeling man nods, trembling, and the stranger turns back toward the car. And he sees me. Our eyes meet through the rain-streaked glass, and I see the exact moment he registers what I am. A girl in a destroyed white dress, terrified and trembling, looking at him like he's the devil himself. His expression doesn't change. He doesn't look away, and I do something that surprises us both. I whisper the only coherent thought my mind can form. "My God, you're going straight to hell." He crosses to the car, opens the driver's side door, and slides back into the seat. For a moment he doesn't move. The rain drums against the roof. The city breathes around us, and then he turns to face me directly, and his mouth curves into a smile that's slow and devastating. "Save me a seat?" His eyes hold mine in the rearview mirror, and his voice is low enough that I have to lean forward to hear it over the rain. "When his white picket fence hell gets too hot, Angel, call me. I'll be waiting in hours." He reaches into his jacket, smooth, deliberate, giving me time to see that he's not pulling a weapon, and produces a single black card. It's heavy, expensive, and bears only a phone number embossed in gold. He extends it between the seats without looking away from my face. I take it. My hand is shaking. "What's your name?" I whisper. "Someone you're going to regret knowing." He's already turning back to the road. "Now, where do we take you?" I give him an address I pull from memory. A hotel 3 blocks from here that I passed once while walking. He drives me there in silence, and when we pull up to the curb, he turns to face me one final time. "The card, Angel. When the moment comes, and it will call, don't think about it, don't second guess. Just call." I nod, not trusting my voice. I slip out of the car, and he drives away into the rain, leaving me standing on the sidewalk in a destroyed wedding dress, clutching a black card, feeling like I've just made a deal with something that was never quite human to begin with. The hotel room is small and smells like industrial bleach and old air conditioning. I shower in scalding water and watch the wedding dress stain the porcelain, mascara, rain, the particular filth of a life I'm about to abandon. When I finally emerge, I'm cleaner, but no less broken. I spend that night researching. My phone, Vance's gift, which now feels like a tracking device, stays face down on the nightstand while I use the hotel's computer. I find articles about Alessandro Vitale, though the name attached to the black card is just a number. Shipping magnate, philanthropist, rumored to have connections to organized crime, but nothing proven, nothing prosecuted. Photographs show a man in expensive suits at galas, always with men in darker suits hovering at the periphery, always alone despite being surrounded. I don't sleep. I watch the hours tick past on the hotel clock, and remember the way he looked at me, the way his voice sounded like someone giving you a choice that was really no choice at all. By morning, I've made 3 decisions. I'm not going back to my mother's house. I'm not returning to my apartment, where Vance probably already has someone waiting. And I'm not keeping my name. Claire Morrison is born on a rainy Tuesday morning when I dye my hair in a CVS bathroom and purchase a one-way bus ticket to Portland's eastern suburbs. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm already in Portland, and now I'm running deeper into the city like it's a forest I can get lost in. The black card stays in my pocket, against my ribs, a heartbeat away from calling. I get a job at a diner called Maggie's Place 3 days later. The owner is a 60-year-old woman with kind eyes and a hiring process that consists of asking if I can start immediately. I tell her I'm running from an abusive situation. It's not exactly a lie, and she nods like she's heard this story before and hires me on the spot. The studio apartment comes next. 1 room, 1 bathroom, 1 window that looks out onto a parking lot. I put 3 locks on the door and a doorstop behind the knob. I sleep with the lights on for the first week and spend my shifts at the diner listening for the sound of a specific voice, watching for a specific car, half hoping and half terrified that he'll find me. He doesn't. Instead, I exist in the small spaces between survival and living. My tips are good because I'm attentive to the regulars, and because there's something about a woman who's clearly running from something that makes people want to take care of her. I rent the smallest space, eat the cheapest food, and watch the black card sit in its hiding place, tucked into my mother's old Bible, which I keep on the nightstand like an anchor to a life I no longer know how to claim. 2 months pass, then 3. The autumn rains turn Portland into a watercolor, and I become someone else entirely. Claire Morrison is quieter than Cora Ashford. She doesn't make plans. She doesn't expect anything from anyone. She moves through the world like someone who's already dead and is just going through the motions of breathing. My therapist, whom I finally find the courage to see in month 4, doesn't ask about the wedding. I don't volunteer it. Instead, I tell her about the running, the fear, the way I can't seem to move forward into anything resembling normal. She's good, and she doesn't push. In month 5, a man comes into the diner wearing an expensive suit. Dark hair, expensive watch. For 3 seconds, my entire body goes rigid, waiting for him to turn around and show me ink-dark eyes. But it's not him. It's some accountant from Seattle in town for a conference. He leaves a generous tip and never notices that I spent the entire interaction holding my breath. That night, I take out the card and hold it in my palm. My thumb traces the number. I could call. I should call. But calling means admitting that he was real, that the moment in the rain wasn't a dissociative break, that there's a man made of darkness who offered me hell and meant it as a kindness. I put the card back in the Bible. Month 8 brings another attempted normal. Ryan is an accountant. Yes, really. Who talks about his 401k and his golden retriever named Oscar. He's safe. He's kind. He's the exact opposite of someone who'd tell you the world is divided into people who serve and people who are served, and there's no middle ground. I go on 3 dates with him. On the 4th, he tries to kiss me, and I'm comparing the taste of his chapstick to the memory of a voice like thunder. And I realize I'm not capable of normal anymore. I never call him back. Month 10 brings the news story. Vance on a local news broadcast, arm around a senator's daughter, announcing their engagement. My hands shake so badly I have to set down the coffee I'm holding. The new girl looks happy, blissful, the way I looked 3 months ago before everything became a lie. I wonder how long it will take before the mask cracks for her. I wonder if she'll be smart enough to run. That night, I hold the card again. My thumb has worn the number smooth. Every digit is memorized into my bone marrow. I hover over the phone with my finger trembling over the keypad. I don't call. Month 11 is worse because the running is starting to feel purposeless. I'm not fleeing anymore. I'm just existing in a holding pattern, waiting for something I won't admit I'm waiting for. The diner smells the same. The regulars ask the same questions. And I'm starting to wonder if this is what my entire life is going to look like. Hiding in a studio apartment, pulling shifts, pretending that moving forward and standing still are somehow different things. Then the black car appears on the rainy street outside the diner. And I stop breathing. I don't see it pull up. I'm wiping down the counter when one of the regulars, an old man named Harold who drinks his coffee black and reads the same section of the newspaper twice, says, "That's an expensive car." He points through the rain-streaked window, and my heart stops beating. It's the same car. Same tint on the windows. Same predatory grace as it idles at the curb. I don't think. I don't breathe. I don't say goodbye to anyone. I just move toward the back door on legs that have forgotten how to remember they're attached to my body. But I stop before pushing through, and I turn back to look at the car one more time. The window rolls down just enough for me to see him. Dark hair, expensive coat, the particular stillness of someone who's been waiting longer than normal people wait for anything. He doesn't smile. He doesn't wave. He just looks at me, and I know. He's been here before. Maybe not today, maybe not even this month, but he's been driving past this diner since I arrived, scanning the interior like a man reading a very specific text. He found me the way the rain finds the ocean, not through effort, but through the simple physics of where we were always destined to be. I don't get in the car, not yet. I go back to my apartment first, because a girl who's been running for a year knows that you pack what you can't lose before you commit to anything irrevocable. My mother's Bible, the few photographs I have of her, the book my father gave me before he disappeared from my life, 3 changes of clothes. I fit everything into a canvas bag and leave the key on the kitchen table. At the curb, I stand in the rain and wait for him to open the door. He does it himself, and he doesn't get out. He just leans across and pushes the passenger door open from the inside, and when I slide into the seat, the car smells exactly like I remember. Sandalwood and gunpowder, and the particular scent of someone who's lived long enough to understand that most people are going to disappoint you. 1 year, he says. His voice hasn't changed. I was wondering if you'd throw the card away or frame it. I kept it, I whisper. In my Bible. He glances at me, and his expression is unreadable. Religious woman? Woman learning to believe in damnation. He smiles at that, and it's slower and more devastating than I remember. Then you're ready. For what? To stop running. He reaches over and takes the canvas bag from my hands, setting it in the back seat like it's something precious. To start fighting back, to save my seat in hell and take yours right next to mine. He pulls away from the curb, and I don't look back at the diner, the apartment, the year of running. I just look at him, really look at him, and feel something inside me click into place like a key turning in a lock. Who are you? I ask, even though I already know. He takes a turn with the confidence of someone who's never questioned his own direction. Someone who sees you, Angel. That's all you need to know. I nod, and I realize I'm crying, though I'm not sure when I started. The tears are silent, and he doesn't acknowledge them, and that's the kindest thing anyone has done for me in the past year. The car eats distance like hunger. He drives himself, no driver, no entourage, and the way his hands rest on the wheel tells me as much as anything he's said. Control isn't a preference. It's a creed. The city outside the windows is a blurred hymn of neon and rain, and the silence between us is thick with everything I've run from, and the one thing I ran toward without admitting it. He doesn't look at me when he speaks. Your building is burned. How do you know where I lived? A man who hunts you makes noise. The smallest tilt of his mouth. I have a habit of listening. Are they watching the diner? They were. One street over. Not anymore. What did you... Move them off your board. He doesn't dress the verbs in threats. The words lie there, clean and bare, and my mind tries on half a dozen interpretations and finds them all both possible and true. I press my palm to the canvas bag in my lap like I can keep the last soft pieces of my life from spilling. He takes an exit I don't recognize and enters a tunnel bright as an operating room. The sound changes, rain muted, engine amplified, and when we emerge, we're under a building with a ceiling so high the lights look like constellations. He pulls into a bay. The gate closes behind us with a finality that feels like a lock clicking. A woman waits by the elevator. Compact, early 40s. Dark hair pulled tight, posture like a line drawn with a ruler. She clocks everything about me in a single sweep, and then focuses on my face. No curiosity, no judgment, only assessment, and beneath it, a surprising warmth that isn't in her expression so much as in the way she softens a fraction to make space for my fear. Rosa, he says. She nods to him, then to me. Ms. Ashford? Morrison, I manage. A flicker of approval. Ms. Morrison. He hands her my bag. Codes. Ready. She turns to me. I'm your head of security. I answer to him on paper, to you in practice. If you need a door, I build one. If you need a wall, I am it. Clear? Clear. The elevator recognizes him without a button pressed. The doors open onto a corridor of smoked glass and quiet wealth. We ride in silence. When the doors slide back, the air shifts. The particular smell of lemon peel and clean stone, something green and alive that doesn't belong this high above the street. The elevator opens directly into a penthouse that looks like someone carved a sanctuary out of the sky. He moves aside so I can step into it first. Shoes by the bench. It's not an order. It's a ritual announced shyly, a confession of domesticity that would be absurd if it didn't soothe something raw in me. I toe off my boots and line them up, left, right, because symmetry calms my breathing. He notices. He notices everything. Give me 15 minutes, Rosa says. Ms. Morrison, you and I will set access. He gestures to a door near the kitchen, a panel flush with the wall. Guest suite. Your codes. No cameras in private spaces. You'll choose the passwords. Rosa will build the system around your habits, not mine. He leaves me there, in a room that is softer than any space I've allowed myself in a year. The bed looks like a thoughtful hug. The bathroom smells like fig and rain. There's a door between this room and another I don't open. I stand in the doorway and breathe. Rosa appears with a tablet and a small box. 2-factor device, panic charm, silent alarm. Let's register your prints. Her voice has the cadence of someone who learned to keep people alive, and then learned to be gentle with that power. She holds the tablet at an angle that puts it in my space without crowding me. When I press my thumb to the sensor, she hums, 3 notes, quick, under her breath, like a thought becoming a plan. I glance up. You always hum when you're building a system? Only when I like the person I'm building it for. It breaks me a little, that line. I swallow it back down and focus on the screen. Codes? Anything you can remember under stress. She watches my hands. People default to birthdays and addresses. Those are easy to hack and hard to enter when you're shaking. I think of the Bible next to my bed, the number burned into my thumb from a year of refusing it. I choose a pattern my fingers already know. The last 5 digits of the black card, turned backward. I don't tell her what it is. I just enter it and feel something settle. Good, she says. Now safeties. She opens the small box. Wearables, tracker and silent alert. a delicate gold chain with a tiny disc that sits cool against my palm. I turn it over with my thumb and try to decide if it feels like a shackle or a lifeline. Maybe both. Maybe that's the point. He insisted I offer, Rosa says, and there's the faintest thread of apology in it. He insisted you choose. I clasp it around my neck. He can insist on consent, too. That's where he shines. The corner of my mouth lifts. Good to know. We set codes for the elevator, the private vestibule, the suite. We assign a word that means get me out now, and another that means burn this down if someone tries to breach. I practice saying them until they stop sounding like incantations and start sounding like tools. She walks me through exits and safe rooms with the reverence of a priest showing someone how to kneel without breaking. The cameras, I say. You said none in private spaces. His rule, not mine. A beat. It's an unusual rule in this world. He's unusual. She doesn't argue. He finds me on the balcony after. The city is a theater below us, lights blinking like secrets, rain turning everything soft. He brings 2 mugs and a thin blanket thrown over his forearm the way an old-world waiter carries a napkin. He sets the blanket on the back of the chair, not over my shoulders, and hands me a mug without facing me. He knows I'm watching him in the glass. You don't have to be grateful, he says. You don't have to be anything you're not ready to be. Then what do I have to be? Honest with yourself. It feels like a dare. I warm my hands on the mug and study the rain. I called you because he found me. I know. You sent someone to watch me. You sent me a year ago, he says, and he doesn't look away from the city. That night in the rain, some part of you told me to come back. I told you to go to hell. He smiles into the glass and saved me a seat. He doesn't push. He doesn't ask for my story like a charge he's due. He sits with me through the rain until my heart stops galloping against the cage of my ribs and my breathing remembers its job. When he finally rises, he doesn't touch me. He just places the blanket over the chair so it will be warm when I take it. Sleep, he says. Rosa will start your training at 9. Training. A small nod. You're not a prisoner. Learn the difference between hiding and being shielded. The night is longer than it should be, and shorter than I want. I move through dreams that feel like rehearsals for fights I haven't had yet. I wake when a soft chime sounds in the room. Not an alarm so much as a gentle suggestion that the day begins now. Rosa appears with coffee and a canvas bag of equipment. She places both on the small table by the window, then steps back like she's presenting me with choices. Adrenaline or warmth. I reach for the mug first. We start simple, she says. Situational awareness, then leverage. I'm not a fighter. You are by necessity, she says, and her tone is so even the words don't bruise. I don't teach you to win a war. I teach you to survive the first minute. We strip fear into components and then build a plan. How to move through a room without becoming the easiest target. How to use elbows and walls and breath. How to read doors and corners and the way a body telegraphs intent before a mouth forms a threat. She shows me how to break a grip with angles, not strength. She hums those 3 notes when I get it right, and a lower note when she wants me to try it again with less apology and more conviction. At noon, he interrupts with lunch like a truce flag. He doesn't ask what we've done. He watches the way I hold myself and adjusts something in his own posture to match it. A silent choreography that makes the space between us even and steady. I need to show you our world, he says, when Rosa leaves us with sandwiches and a map spread across the dining table. The parts you'll be in, the parts you'll never touch, the parts you'll pretend you can't see. He lays a pen on the map and draws circles. Legitimate. A shipping route, a logistics firm, a technology company I've heard of but never thought to connect to anyone like him. Gray. Warehouses that move expensive things at hours that don't invite inspectors. Clubs where the liquor is legal and the deals upstairs are not. Black. He says it without flinching. You don't go there. You don't ask. My line's not yours. I don't cross yours. You don't cross mine. We meet in the middle and build. Build what? Something no one can topple, he says quiet. You burned everything you had so you wouldn't be used. I did the same years ago for a different reason. It leaves a man with a taste for foundation. Who taught you to be this person? My father taught me to be his son, he says, and his mouth turns. Constantine taught me to be an enemy. I recognize the name before I remember why. Constantine, I say, too sharp. He hears the change and looks up. You know the name, Vance, I swallow. He works for Constantine. He doesn't move. He doesn't blink. He says very softly, as if he's laying down a weapon because the floor is about to shift. Say that again. Vance is deputy campaign manager for Senator Constantine, I say, and now that the words are free, they want out all of them at once. He was obsessed with politics, connections. Every story had a naked ambition at the center. He needed me because I understood rooms he didn't. He kept talking about access like it was a currency we could mint if we were smart. I thought it was ego. It was reconnaissance. He rolls his signet ring with his thumb. Once, twice. A tell I would have missed before Rosa taught me what hands say. When he speaks, his voice is flat. You met him how? My college boyfriend's cousin, I say, and the past feels like a trapdoor beneath me. A summer fling. He learned my last name and realized the cousin was connected to your family. He went fishing and I climbed on the hook. You were never his fiancé, he says, and the line is so clinical it should hurt more than it does. You were a key cut to my door. All at once, grief and rage sing the same note in my chest. I grip the table hard enough my palm creases the paper and make myself look at the map like a general and not a girl. Then let's throw away the door. He studies me for a long breath. Then he turns the map and the pen so they face me. Show me how you think. We work until the city goes from silver to blue to black. He brings me data and I shape it into patterns. The act is medicine and hunger and something close to worship when a plan locks into place and the world lines up like it was meant for our hands. We build a strategy around Constantine's network, not the obvious branches that wave for attention, but the roots that run underground and feed the tree even when the trunk looks untouched. Shell companies, law firms, the law firm's clients, the clients' cousins who hold shares in companies whose names never appear on any politician's lips, but pay for their campaigns anyway. We become something I didn't know I wanted. Partners. Not in romance, not yet, but in the precise intimacy of two minds touching the same problem with equal appetite. At 9, he stands and stretches, and the movement pulls his shirt tight over his chest. I pretend not to notice the line of a scar that runs white and thin toward his ribs, the map of his history kept beneath fabric as if a confession. He notices me noticing, and he doesn't look away to give me privacy in my curiosity. He just moves to the kitchen and removes 2 plates from the oven like a man who knows nourishment is a weapon too. We're not ready to strike, he says as he sets the food down. Constantine will feel us coming if we're sloppy. Vance will posture, then panic. He'll do something loud. Rosa will keep me breathing. She will, he says. And I hear something softer under the line. But you keeping you breathing is a requirement too. I know where my air is, I say before I can stop myself. Something flares in his eyes and then banked again, a coal covered with steadying ash. Eat. We do. He doesn't talk when I need silence. He talks when I need noise to climb out of my thoughts. When he stands, he takes my plate and then sets a small thing on the table next to my hand. What is it? Access. A thin black card. Not the one he gave me a year ago. The universal master for this space. He places his finger over the chip, then lifts it away so I can see I'm not being tricked into registering to his prints. Your codes, your fail-safes. I can't revoke it without your permission. You can revoke mine with yours. Why? Because you won't stay if you can't leave. He watches me put it in my palm. Because every cage looks like a sanctuary for the first 3 days. I slide the card into the small pocket sewn inside my sweater and feel the weight of a man's trust like a heat source. In the days that follow, the penthouse becomes a war college. Rosa trains me in the mornings and walks me through hypothetical scenarios until fear becomes geometry. In the afternoons, he brings me into meetings with people whose names bend rooms. He doesn't introduce me as anything. He lets me be. And then he lets me speak when I see the lie or the weakness. Like a novice allowed to place a rook for the first time while masters. Watch. His consigliere arrives on a Thursday with a smile that looks harmless and isn't. Dante houses his intelligence. In gestures that read as charm until you look at the way, his eyes never blink at the wrong moment. He shakes my hand, and then sets a chess knight in front of me on the conference table like a proposition he knows I'll accept. You play? He asks. Poorly. I say then. Worse when men explain the opening to me while I'm setting up my pawns. He grins. Queen's own diagonals, he says, and taps the knight's head. But knights break patterns. He makes bad chess metaphors 3 times in the next hour. It's somehow not obnoxious, matter-of-factly addictive, like a verbal fidget toy he's unaware he's using to get us all into the same rhythm. When he leans over the map, he quotes some grandmaster as if strategy is a shared language. And I realize his quirk is the way he speaks in pieces and boards as if war is never not on the table. Sophia comes for dinner and brings the smell of warm basil with her. She's not what I expect from the sister of a man like him. She's sunshine made into a woman, with eyes that see right through you and choose to be kind anyway. She kisses both my cheeks, then reaches for a frame on the bookshelf and straightens it to perfect alignment, a small ritual that repeats twice before the night ends, like a person negotiating with chaos and gently insisting on order as an act of faith. You're thinner than your photos. She looks me over, and then past me to her brother. You're feeding her like a hostage, yes? I made lasagna, he says. He warmed lasagna he did not make, she clarifies to me, conspiratorial. He can cook 3 things, and all of them are eggs. I grilled fish last night. He burned fish last night, she corrects. And the fondness between them is a living thing, a third presence at the table that makes the walls softer. Over wine, she tells me about their father, and the word murdered hangs in the air and changes the climate of the room. She says Constantine's name with a composure born of practicing in mirrors until the syllables didn't shake the china. When she reaches for her bracelet and straightens it over and over, I realize that's her tell. The way her body has learned to move grief into a loop so it doesn't devour her. Later, when she's gone and the house is quiet again, I find him on the balcony with his sleeves pushed to his forearms and the city a map he's memorized more than once. Tell me how he died, I say, and he doesn't pretend not to know who I mean. A rally, 8 years ago. His voice is a knife laid gently on a table, a speech built to make men feel like they had an engine in their throats. He wanted to be legitimate. He wanted to be a statesman. He thought he could be both. He took a bullet meant for me. I'm sorry, I whisper, and the words are too small, and I hate them for it. He turns his ring with his thumb. I am what he built and what he saved. That combination makes a man into something that shouldn't be loved. That combination makes a man into someone who understands protection like a language, I say. And the honesty of it costs me. I know what it is to sit in the doorway at night so the thing you love can sleep. He looks at me for a long time, and then he looks away because he's kind. We don't touch. We learn each other by proximity and quiet detail, by the way he angles his body when we walk, so no one is ever at my back. By the way I count the floors as the elevator rises because numbers feed a part of my brain that anxiety tries to starve. We become fluent in the small indulgences that make intimacy inevitable. The first strike against us comes on a Sunday afternoon disguised as an errand. Rosa and I take the service elevator to the garage because she's stubborn about drills looking like life. The SUV idles. Marco, one of Rosa's team, stands by the rear door and scans the perimeter with eyes that collect data as casually as lungs collect air. We're exactly 3 steps from the car when a sedan accelerates around the corner too fast for this space. Rosa's hand is on my elbow before my brain makes the sound car into a thought. She pivots our bodies into a wedge that makes me shield without suffocating. 1 step left, 1 back, angle, angle. Metal between us and the oncoming vehicle before I have time to be. Impressed by the physics now, she says. Marco moves like gravity belongs to him and plants himself in front of us with only his hands, and the knowledge of how to use them to change a situation. The sedan brakes too late. Tires scream. The rear door of our SUV swings open because someone inside has hands and a mind on the same page. And Rosa is lifting me into the car even as the first man exits the sedan and makes a noise that's meant to sound like calm and doesn't. The world narrows. I move through it like we rehearsed. Knee, elbow, weight low, door closed. Seatbelts, because some parts of surviving are as unromantic as remembering to click metal into metal. The sedan reverses fast. Marco takes a picture without lifting his phone, a trick I file away as useful. By the time we reach street level, the sedan is gone. By the time we reach the tower, my phone vibrates and a text appears from an unknown number that isn't unknown anymore. Attempts failed. Next time, answer my call. Vance always did love the we of control. I look at the message until my vision goes sharp at the edges, then hold the screen so Rosa can see without touching it. She hums those 3 notes. He'll escalate. I want him to, I say, surprising myself with the steel in it. I want him visible. He doesn't wait to hear it from Rosa. He's in the foyer when we open the door to the penthouse. Tie loosened like he left the knot, strangling on purpose so he could look like he'd been interrupted. His eyes do the math on our faces and he's already moving. What happened? Sedan in the garage. Aggressive approach. Pulled off when they saw we had numbers, Rosa says. Marco got a plate, likely a fake. We'll run it. He takes my hand like he has to count my bones. He doesn't squeeze. He touches every knuckle lightly with his thumb, as if reintroducing himself to the structure of my survival. Any pain. Just adrenaline, I say, and the shake in my voice is the only thing brave enough to be honest. He nods once, and his face changes the way the atmosphere changes before a storm. The air loses oxygen. Bring me someone, he says. He means, I won't let this stand. He means, bring me the man who drove, the man who sent him, the man who thought he could make my woman flinch and live to regret it tomorrow. Rosa doesn't argue. She knows the rituals and she trusts me to rebuild him after. She nods and leaves, humming those 3 notes like a promise she's placing on the floor where we can't trip over it. They bring him a man by dusk, not the driver. A handler 2 rungs up. He's cocky in the way men become when they've never actually bled for the people they claim to command. They take him to a room no one calls a basement because the word feels like a confession. I don't go. He doesn't invite me. He doesn't need to. I don't go, but I watch. The feed is deliberate. 1 camera, 1 angle, no sound. He steps into the frame with a stillness that reads as mercy. If you've never seen the shape of rage on a man who's mastered it. He takes off his watch and places it on a table like a promise to give it back to himself later. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. His hands make the case for him, and the man in the chair confesses with his body before his mouth can join in. It's not that he's violent. Violence is easy. It's that he's surgical. He knows where pain instructs and where it just screams. He chooses the former and ignores the latter with an efficiency that makes my stomach go cold. When the man spits blood, it's not horror, it's punctuation. Dante enters the frame once and places a hand on his shoulder. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. The hand is a scale recalibrating weight. Then he leaves and my almost lover, what else do I call him, makes a choice. He hits the man with his fists and not a tool, and the motion is not elegant. It is personal, and it is almost his undoing. 2 of his men pull him off because they love him enough to restrain him, and not enough to let him ruin a plan with a moment. He wrenches free, and then stops like someone pulled his spine into alignment with 1 word. He looks at his hands as if they're not his. He sits hard. The feed continues for a minute more and then goes dark. He doesn't come upstairs. He doesn't text. He doesn't explain the silence. He doesn't have to. I don't sleep. I go to the study and make tea and then don't drink it. I count my breaths to 100 and then back to 0, and it doesn't help. At 2 a.m, the elevator chimes. He walks in with blood on his knuckles gone black and eyes gone flat. He stops in the doorway when he sees me and stays there, like he's respecting the borders he promised while wanting to burn them. You should leave, he says. Very calm. I am what you named me. I've been pretending it can be contained. It can't. You deserve better than a man who almost breaks when a threat looks at you wrong. I stand. I walk to him. I take his hands with their ruined knuckles and I hold them, palm to palm, careful of the places that hurt, and careless of the blood that will mark my skin. Up close, he smells like rain and salt, and the electric static of a storm that already broke. I'm not afraid of your darkness, I say, and the truth of it is a relief. I'm afraid you'll let it eat you before we finish this. We go to hell together, remember? Not alone. He closes his eyes like prayer hurts. When he opens them, the ring is under his thumb again, and he rolls it once, as if choosing not to turn it into a blade. I don't deserve you. Good thing I don't care about deserve. Something crumples and rebuilds behind his eyes. He leans forward until our foreheads touch and breathes me like oxygen. He doesn't kiss me. He could. I would let him. He doesn't. He steps back, and that somehow is intimacy too. Sleep, I say. We dismantle them in the morning. We do. Daylight makes the work cleaner. He turns the confession Rosa pulled from the handler into a thread we can follow without cutting the whole weave. The man names a fund no one should know exists. The fund ties to a shell. The shell ties to a consulting firm where Vance learned to smile without showing teeth. We make a list and assign tasks. Rosa pulls traffic camera footage. Dante runs forensic accounting with a grin that says math is foreplay. I sit with screens until my eyes hurt, and then I sit harder. Somewhere in the 5th hour, the pattern stops flirting and takes off her coat and lets me see. Stop, I say. Run that again. Rosa rewinds a feed without comment. The timestamp blinks. A door opens. A figure enters our building's private lobby. The face is blurred. But the gait, slight tilt of the right shoulder, a knee that doesn't fully extend, is familiar enough to make my stomach drop. Sophia. No, I say out loud before I can swallow it. That's not stop. That's not right. The second piece arrives on Dante's tablet, a dump of bank transactions. The amounts are neat. The dates are damning. They land in an account that bears Sophia's name. He doesn't look at me. He looks at his friend, his almost brother, his anchor, and the part of his face that learned to make rooms shiver goes very still. He doesn't accuse. He doesn't excuse. He just sits. Rosa touches the edge of the table with her fingertips and hums her 3 notes like she's reminding the room to breathe. We verify, she says. Then we decide. He nods once. Pull the raw, not the report. I want the camera's blood, not the autopsy. I take it without asking if I'm allowed. I go to the glass-walled office that faces the bar he owns downstairs, and I lock the door because this is mine to do, and I don't need anyone to watch me find or not find a woman's guilt. I review the footage from 3 angles. I slow it to make it harder to lie. I speed it up to see if speed reveals a tell. I watch the same 24 minutes until I can feel them in my bones like scar tissue. Every time I see the tilt of that shoulder and the not quite straight knee, my vision blurs. Every time I make it past, my vision clears because the figure, whoever they are, never adjusts a bracelet they wear the way Sophia adjusts hers when she's holding grief by the throat. Sophia can't walk past a crooked frame. She can't walk past a crooked frame. She can't walk. Play the lobby camera, I say. Rosa links it. The lens catches the reflection of a picture frame in the polished steel of the elevator door. The frame is crooked. The figure enters. The frame stays crooked. Sophia would have straightened it even if a gun was pointed at her spine. Not her, I whisper, giddy with a relief that feels like Rage's cleaner cousin. It's not her. Dante doesn't argue. He's a creature of proof when it serves him. Who is it? Someone who wanted to be her. Someone who knows she was framed because he framed her. E.T., Rosa says. And all at once, everything we've been ignoring pulls itself into focus. 6 months ago, we hired a contractor for the server migration. Quinn, Dante says. At the same moment, I say, the one who chews pen caps and misquotes jargon. He barks a laugh that has no humor. You remembered that? He called 2-factor authentication dual authorization twice, I say. An unfair triumph warms my tongue. Men who sell lies misname the tools they use because accuracy isn't the job. He wears cheap shoes and an expensive watch, and that's a tell too. We don't run. We walk. We set the trap in a way that makes him think he's caught the mouse he placed in our walls. Rosa invites him in to adjust security parameters after a breach. He arrives in a shirt a shade too bright, and a smile that wants to be a shield. I sit at the head of the table where he expects to see a man. I let him correct me twice on terms I know better than he does. I let him feel taller. I let him speak. Then I open a file and show him his own code, and the way it pretended to be Sophia's fingerprint in the server logs. I show him what the lobby mirror saw that he did not. A frame he forgot to straighten, because he doesn't know the way grief manifests as compulsion in the woman he framed. You want to try again? I say, and the line is steady and new. He folds. People break loud or they break quiet. He melts into the chair like wax. He tries to bargain because bargaining is the last reflex of men who believed they were the smartest thing in the room. Rosa doesn't let his mouth get ahead of whatever value he still has. She records. She threads words through him like a needle through cloth and doesn't tug yet. When he's empty enough to be useful, Dante takes him away. He doesn't go to the room no one calls a basement. He goes to a space people leave when they've given everything. They have to give and haven't yet died of. Shame. I find him in the kitchen with his hands braced on the counter and his head bowed, like a man in a confessional. He doesn't look up when I enter. She didn't, I say. We have 3 proofs in a confession. He doesn't move. Then he does. He turns and sets his hands on my shoulders like he needs a tether that isn't a wall. His knuckles are still healing. He lifts one hand and hovers it near my jaw, not touching. You protected my family when I doubted, he says, low. You reminded me the people I love are not separate countries. We're one border now, I say. He laughs, a broken sound that rebuilds itself by the end. You're not in my world, he says softly. You are my world's conscience. Then let me help finish this. We plan the strike that will hurt them where they can't cauterize. Reputation. The law, the story. We will pull threads in public and leave trails in places they can't hide. We will choose rooms where their cameras become our cameras, because they won't know whose lens is whose until after the lights come up. The gala, I say. Constantine will be there. Vance will orbit. We walk in together. I make the story. You bear witness. You want to confront him in public. I want to end his favorite trick, I say, and the clarity of it is oxygen. He makes private rooms into prisons. I make public rooms into courts. Dante taps the chess knight against the table twice and grins. Knights break patterns, he says, and when I roll my eyes, he looks delighted. I knew you'd come around. Rosa hums her amen. Sophia straightens a frame on the mantel with fingers that shake once and then still. She crosses to me and places a hand over my heart like she's saying a blessing that came from a grandmother who taught her the difference between prayer and promise. You do this, she says. You ruin him with truth. I will, I say, and I mean it too much to say it loud. The dress arrives 2 days later in a box I don't remember ordering. Midnight red that remembers the day I bled my life out and will not let me apologize for it. I try it on alone and the mirror shows me a woman who has memorized the shape of survival and is learning the choreography of power. The color sticks to my skin. I press my palms to my thighs and watch them shake once, then stop. He knocks on the door jamb like we haven't been moving around each other in a dance we refuse to name. He stops when he sees me. He doesn't go soft and he doesn't go feral. He goes very, very still, and that is somehow the most dangerous of the 3. You look like war, he says. Good. Ready. Yes. He offers his arm as if the world still contains gentlemen. I take it as if the world should be so lucky. The car is quiet. The cameras at the hotel spin like indifferent birds. We step into a room full of money and ambition, and every head turns because this is what happens when a man like him arrives with a woman no one can place. I feel eyes on my skin like weather. I borrow his stillness and make it mine. Vance finds us with the unerring instinct of a man who always believed he owned any space he entered. His mouth is already forming the lie he thinks works best, concern. He reaches like he gets to touch me. I pivot, half a step, enough to make his fingers fail to land. You look well, he says, and the way he adjusts his cufflink tells me he's lying to himself more than me. I've been worried. Worried about losing your intelligence asset. I don't raise my voice. I place it where people are forced to listen. I know what I was to you, Vance. A pawn carved to fit a lock you couldn't pick. Every dinner, every I love you, every proposal, professionally strategized deceit. He blanches. He recovers. He smiles like a camera. She's unwell, he says to the room. This is unfortunate. Constantine's handler appears at his shoulder with a look that says damage control practiced in mirrors. He reaches for Vance's elbow. Vance shakes him off, pride bigger than his sense. Perfect. The phones rise. The whispers change pitch. The room is doing my job for me. You targeted her to hurt me, the man at my side says, and you could cut bread with the edge in his voice. You walked a girl to the edge of your war and taught her to jump when you said jump. Now she's going to destroy you, and I'm going to watch. I feel the line like a hand at the small of my back, steadying. I plant my feet and become the woman I designed when I learned to survive. I place the truth where it can't be ignored, and I let the cameras carry it like a lit path out of a maze. We leave him standing in a room where the air has turned to knives. Dante makes a chess joke in the hallway that is so bad I almost laugh. Rosa hums those 3 notes into her sleeve to make sure the team upstairs hears our pulse through the comms. Sophia's text arrives like a prayer. You were perfect. In the car, my hands shake. Relief and rage and something like grief for the part of me that thought love and mission could never share a bed. He doesn't touch me like a claim. He touches me like a man reconciling debts he never meant to incur. You were born for this, he says softly. Strategy, staging, war without blood. I want our win to be legal, I whisper. I want him to rot from paper cuts. Then we bleed him with ink. We work through the night in the morning eye of the internet's storm. The story multiplies. Women call me. Some call me names I don't accept. Others send me their screenshots, their records, their stories of men who used rooms and closeness and quiet to turn love into leverage. We collect them and stack them and then check everyone against a proof because righteous fury is only useful when it's accurate. By afternoon, a line I couldn't see before becomes a wire. It hums, it burns. It connects Constantine's money to a death 8 years ago. It connects that death to a man who believed he would ascend on blood. It connects that man to the ex-fiancé who texted me, threats and wore cufflinks, that needed constant correction because his hands shake when the lie gets too big for his mouth. We're going to break them. We are two. Movements from the crescendo when he steps away for a meeting, with a prosecutor who somehow managed to grow a spine in a city that rewards mollusks. He takes the secure car because he knows theater is a weapon. He kisses my temple in the foyer like a vow he believes he has time to make properly later. I'll be an hour, he says. Don't set anything on fire until I'm back. No promises, I say, and my smile feels like a knife someone polished for me while I slept. I track his little dot moving down a map because I allowed the necklace to mean protection, not ownership. I stop looking at the screen to focus on an affidavit, and then Rosa's hum changes pitch and the world ends. Cora, she says. First time she's used my name like she needs me to hear it as an anchor. And everything inside me moves into the hallway before my body does. He's been hit. What? Car. Outside the courthouse. He's alive. Alive. Take me to him. We're on our way, she says. And something in her voice makes me grab the edge of the table to stay upright because Rosa never lets fear leak. She holds the dam always. The leak is new. The leak is bad. We move faster than rooms should allow. The elevator arrives like it has been waiting for only us. The driver's hands are steady, because he knows steady is what keeps the car from becoming a coffin. Sirens make the street turn into an artery. The hospital is a country we invade with paperwork and names, and inside it I am a citizen by declaration, not by blood. They don't want to let me in. Rosa wants to move them aside. I lay names on the counter like money. I pull a lawyer on speaker. I call his sister. I do not cry. I place my voice where it will be obeyed because now I know how to do that without shame. A nurse with kind eyes and a braid that looks like a rope lowers the rope for me and I cross ICU. Acronyms make the living into numbers. Machines hiss and count and blink. He looks small, because all big men look small when the universe has reminded them they are mortal. Tubes make his mouth a lie. His chest rises shallow. His knuckles are clean. The ring is on the tray like a line someone had to draw so his body didn't carry metal into the machines. I take his hand, and it is warm, and that is all I need it to be. I lay my forehead against the back of it because prayer hurts, and breath feels like violence. You don't get to leave first, I say, and my voice sounds like someone else. We made a deal. I told you to go to hell and you asked me to save you a seat. You don't get to skip the table now. The nurse says his name. She says my name. She changes numbers on a machine. She smiles at me like a mother, and I hate her for a minute because I need someone to hate, and she's the only body in range. Then I love her because she doesn't tell me to be strong. She adjusts a blanket because cold is insult added to injury. Sophia arrives with a bracelet that shakes and a mouth that refuses to fall apart because she learned to be a bridge. For a boy who lost a father and a man who became a legend. Dante leans against the wall like spine is optional. He quotes a chess game so old it might be a fairy tale, and I want to laugh and I don't. Rosa stands like a wall and hums those 3 notes so quietly it becomes the air. I don't leave. The hours crawls. The machines argue with each other in beeps. Nurses exchange codes and fluids and comfort. I tell him things I didn't want to admit in rooms where people could hear me. I love you, I say into the skin of his wrist, like it's a church and a confession booth and a train station where, for once, the right person might arrive. Not because you saved me. Because when I condemned you, you met me there, unashamed. Because you look at my darkness and choose me anyway. Because you call protection a language, not a weapon. Wake up. Claim it out loud so I can stop teaching my mouth to live without yours. He moves. Maybe it's meaningless. Maybe it's the way bodies shift so they remember they exist. But his fingers twitch. Then they close around mine like a promise he's kept in worse places. His eyes open, heavy-lidded and furious at the light. They find me like they've been practicing the root in the dark. Did you? He whispers, voice ground down to gravel. Save my seat. I laugh and cry and say yes, and then yes again because once is not enough. I lean in and kiss the corner of his mouth and not the tubes because the tubes need to stay until breathing stops being work. Always, I say. Forever. He sleeps again and breath becomes less of a hostage situation. The doctor, young, sharp, eyes that have learned to tell the truth like a gift even when it hurts, says words like internal bleeding and stabilized and fractured ribs. He uses his hands when he talks, not because he's Italian, but because he has to place his sentences somewhere he can see them. We keep him still, he says. We keep you fed. I nod like an obedient thing and then eat a sandwich. I cannot taste because Rosa hands it to me, and I have learned to accept her offerings like a pilgrim. They make me go home to shower and not collapse. The shower hurts because it feels like indulgence. I put on a sweater that still smells like a day. He laughed into my shoulder. And I don't apologize to a god I stopped being sure of because apology is for mistakes. And this is survival. When I return, Dante is asleep in a chair designed for discomfort. And Rosa is on the phone with a man whose voice breaks the way engines do when you push them too hard for too long. Sophia is straightening a get-well card on the table by the bed, and then straightening it again as if order could seduce fate into being kind. Your turn, the nurse with the rope braid says. He's been asking for you with his eyebrows since he woke up and ran out of words. I take his hand. I try not to cry because my face is tired of being a weather system. He looks at me. He makes a sound that might be my name if sound had to climb out of mud to reach us. Paper, I say, and place a pen in his good hand, and a board beneath it. He writes 2 words and then closes his eyes, and I memorize the angle of his lashes because I am a woman who takes inventory of beauty when it shows up uninvited. Marry me, I laugh, and the sound isn't broken this time. You're proposing from a hospital bed, I whisper. He writes slower. A line, a letter. The ring finger of his good hand taps the metal on the tray like a metronome. Hell too. I rest my forehead against his arm. Then yes, I say. I'll meet you there and build something holy out of the ruin. He sleeps. I watch him breathe. Outside the window, dawn turns the city into a thing that could be forgiven if forgiveness was something I still believed in. The machines blink less urgently. My phone buzzes with the rest of the world's need. I turn it face down and give myself this hour, this man, this vow we haven't yet said anywhere but where it matters most, between us. When the prosecutors call, I answer. My voice doesn't shake when I testify. I bring receipts. I bring names and dates and screen grabs of messages Vance should have never sent and certainly never saved. I walk them through how the shell companies tie to a murder without using words that make the law flinch. I tell them the story of a year spent learning to become the woman who would end a man who thought he owned her. I don't stop until the man on the other end of the line exhales like someone who just realized he might get to do the right thing and keep his job. The arrest comes on a Wednesday in a room built for microphones. They take Vance away on live TV, and his cufflinks are straight because no one will admit the tell when the cameras are on. Constantine's smile cracks and the fractures run until they reach the foundation. The city hums with the sound of a throat clearing before it sings. I go back to the hospital and hold the hand of the man who made this possible by handing me a pen and a map. You did it without me, he says. Voice less gravel. More man. No, I say. I did it for you. Because you taught me I didn't have to be raw to be sharp. He closes his eyes like the compliment hurts and he likes the pain. You're mine. The declaration shouldn't be a prayer, and it is. And you're mine, I say. Write it in a book if you need it to be official. On a wall, he murmurs. With fire. Overkill, I whisper, and his mouth curves around the kind of smile that made me run toward hell. Always, he says. Overkill or nothing. He sleeps, and in the hours after the televised fall of a man who once owned my choices, the hospital becomes a church that allows irreverence as long as you mind the quiet. Nurses trade shifts with the efficiency of people who can save most, but not all. Sophia straightens the crooked get-well card again, fingers smoothing the edge until the paper lies obedient. Dante dozes with his jacket folded under his head like he's never used a pillow meant for the task. Rosa hums her 3 notes so softly it threads through the beeps without making war. He wakes in degrees. A hand squeeze, a blink, the smallest lift at the corner of his mouth. The tubes leave, replaced by air that doesn't need help finding him. The first food he eats is a spoonful of broth that tastes like salt and relief. I hold the cup and pretend my hands don't shake. He holds my wrist like it's a promise to learn to hold more without breaking it. "You're safe," I whisper. "You made it so." "Don't give me credit for the sun rising," I say, and he huffs what might be a laugh if he had more breath to spend. The doctor, Ezra, whose name tag looks too cheerful for a man who says words like perforation before lunch, steps in and out with the authority of someone who knows when to boss and when to bless. He orders sleep like a prescription. He tells me to leave the room for 10 minutes every hour and touch something that isn't a machine. I obey, mostly because Rosa gives me the look that means she'll pick me up bodily if I argue. On day 2, a new message arrives from a number I don't recognize. It's a photograph of the courthouse stairs, a circle drawn around a scorch mark as if vandalism could be a love letter. Beneath, still breathing. Shame. I stare until the screen goes dim. Then I hand the phone to Rosa. She hums, ascending this time. "He wants to be the echo. He wants you to hear him every time you breathe. He doesn't get to be air." "No," she says, and her mouth is not kind. "He gets to be a case file. He becomes exactly that. The prosecutors build a structure around what we gave them, and then they add walls we didn't know were needed. The car bomb threads to a fixer whose bank account ties to a man who once shook Constantine's hand while speaking about opportunity. The fixer becomes a witness when he realizes the alternative is a bullet. He names a fund. Dante supplies dates. I place the truth where it cannot be argued, not because it's loud, but because it's correct. On the 4th day, I walk through a near miss that would have undone me before I learned to breathe this way. An email arrives from an assistant district attorney I've spoken to twice. Articulate, efficient, a man whose sentences come with case law. He wants to meet. Today, not tomorrow. Private, not formal. The ask slides a little in my gut where intuition lives. The signature block is perfect. The phone number matches. Everything looks right and doesn't feel right. "Forwarded from an internal," Dante says, reading over my shoulder, spoofing the okay from his boss. "Or the boss is compromised," I say. "Nights," he murmurs, and when I glare, he looks pleased to have accomplished the irritation. Break patterns. We test the ask instead of answering it. Rosa routes the email through a filter she shouldn't have that lives in a server no one can subpoena without a warrant they won't earn. The trace tells a small story with large implications. The message didn't originate from the DA's office. It came from the same suite of IPs we mapped to Constantine's media firm. They were trying to pull me into a room where they could trap me in words and turn the trap into a narrative about instability. I send 2 words to the assistant DA's official number. "Coffee. Lobby." He replies in 9 seconds. "Not me. Be careful." Rosa hums those notes again. Lower now, like she's playing the sound beneath the sound so I learn what not to hear next time. She taps my phone screen. "We work on paper where they can't rewrite the ink. We do. We sign the affidavit that will light the fuse on a career and the man who built it at any cost." I sign my name with a hand that doesn't hesitate, and when the pen leaves the page, it feels like unhooking my breath from something that wanted to drown it. He comes home on a Thursday in a car that moves as if the world should make a lane for it. The doctor says words like limited activity and pain management and follow-up imaging. We translate them into a schedule that places his stubbornness second and his healing first. The penthouse opens like a patient thing that missed its people. The air smells like lemon and clean linen, and the faint medicinal note of hospital that clings to skin even after you shower. I lead him to the bedroom, not because he needs help walking, but because care is a verb I plan to conjugate in every tense. He sits on the bed and looks at his hands like he's counting sins or stitches. I can't tell which, The ring is back where it belongs. He turns it once and then stills it. A discipline I learn right then means he is trying for me. Pain? I ask. Enough to remind me I have a body, he says, and the corner of his mouth lifts. Not enough to distract me from the view. Arrogant, observant, Rosa. Knocks and enters with a bag and pills and a lecture that would fit neatly inside a mother's voice if she allowed herself sentiment. She hands me the orange bottle like a relay baton, and then places the smallest kiss on his hair. So quick he could pretend it didn't happen if he needed to. He doesn't pretend. He looks at her hand as if it's a medal she pinned and he doesn't know why he got it. Call, she says. For anything, he nods. She hums her notes and slides out, careful to close the door like she's tucking us in. We move through the next few days as a pair of creatures learning a new equilibrium. I become acquainted with the rituals of his pain, the wince when he laughs too hard, the way he dismisses it for everyone except me, the small sound he doesn't let leave his throat when he stands too fast. I fetch water, he lets me. He pretends to hate the broth. I pretend not to know the pretending is, for the part of him that can't stand needing help. On the second night home, the rain returns. The fire in the study listens to the weather and chooses to participate. Soft heat and a low, steady light. He's on the sofa in a dark t-shirt that hides the bruises I already memorized. I wear the sweater he likes because it changes my posture into a thing that invites, rather than deflects. The city outside is a hum, the inside is a hush. He doesn't reach for me. He lets me decide the distance. I cross to him and kneel between his knees because I want us at a height where breath doesn't have to fight. I cup his face, careful. His stubble is soft. His skin smells like cedar and the clean spice of whatever soap he chose because hospitals made him miss control. Once we cross this, he says, and the words vibrate against my fingers. I won't want anything less than everything. I place my forehead against his and let him feel the steady count of my yes. Then take what I give and give me what I ask. He exhales like he's been carrying a load that learned to speak. Want, want, want. And is finally setting it down. He doesn't surge. He doesn't devour. He learns my pace like he learned my breath. I slide my fingers to the cufflinks he isn't wearing and mimic the movement anyway. A ritual to honor a night interrupted by fire. He watches like reverence is a physical sensation. My choice, I whisper. Freely. My worship, he returns. And it isn't blasphemy when the person you mean is the altar. I trace the scar near his rib with a touch that promises curiosity and not pity. He turns slightly so I can map it properly. He tells me how he got it, briefly, not making the wound a story he lives in. I kiss a line along the mark that says, "This is part of the geography I will learn." He shivers like confession. When I pull my shirt over my head, the air raises my skin to meet his hands. The fireplace throws silhouettes onto the wall that look like a story we were always meant to tell. He watches my face more than my body. And I remember in a rush what it is for a man to hunger for your joy, not your surrender. Tell me, he says, and the ask is precise. Where, how, and when to stop. Here, I breathe and place his hands at my waist. Now, never. We kiss as if the first attempt at anything should be careful, not chaste. I climb into his lap slowly, mindful of pain, and he murmurs a protest that is less about need and more about wanting to be the one who lifts. I press a finger to his mouth and smile. Let me, I say. Let me have the pleasure of work. He laughs that half-broken laugh, and it hurts him, and he doesn't care. The sound is a gift I store. I guide his mouth to my collarbone and feel the world turn inside out, steady as a tide. His hands learn the language I use. Pressure here, slower there, pause, because what's building is a cathedral, and I want every stone chosen, not thrown. When we are as close as two people can be without breaking gentleness, the room narrows to skin and breath and the quiet declarations people carve into each other when words would only spread the truth too thin. We move to the sofa because he is careful with history and doesn't want our next hours to be written in a place our work lives. The cushions become a harbor. The blanket becomes a ritual. The fire becomes a witness that learned to be discreet. Still think I'm going to hell, he murmurs. Mouth at my throat, without question. I manage. And then I sink and soar, the two not contradictory for once. But at least I'll be there with you. Good, he says, and his voice breaks on it like it's a vow made over a ring forged from a promise kept. Then let's burn. After he wraps me in his shirt and rebuilds the fire that didn't need it, as if tending is the thing his hands were always meant to do. He hands me water and doesn't look away when I drink, like yes is still happening in the small acts too. He places his palm over my heart and counts something there with his thumb. The seat next to me, he says, a smile in it that unknots something deep. I'm claiming it. It was always yours, I say. I just made you ask. We sleep like people who negotiated with their bodies and won. He wakes in the night with pain, and I wake to meet it. He goes still under my fingers and breathes until the storm passes. I fall asleep with my hand on his ring, and dream of corridors that might have been prisons and turned out to be aisles we would walk. In the morning, the world still wants its accounting. The prosecutorial machine gains momentum. The headlines get bolder because narrative rewards heat, and the truth now has a body to wear to the party. Constantine's people leak documents meant to look exculpatory and read like a confession to anyone who understands how money disguises itself to sneak out the back door. The assistant DA calls to say thank you and then says brace because the mess is only beginning. We brace. The arraignment drips theater. Vance arrives in a suit that fits and a mouth that does not. His lawyer speaks for him in the way men like that prefer, a voice trained to make the air itself acquiesce. The charges stack. The judge reads them. Cameras blink. Eyes blink. Somewhere in the room, the woman I was a year and a week ago holds the woman I am now in a gaze and nods like approval. I don't look away. Outside, microphones become mouths. I say the same sentence 10 ways, that no one is allowed to turn love into a weapon and walk away unshot. I refuse to provide what the cameras think they want. Tears, a meltdown, a public catharsis they can stream. I give them the gift of being uninteresting instead, and it turns out to be the one thing they don't know how to package. 3 weeks later, the plea deal fails because men like Vance believe juries want to believe them. The trial begins. I testify once, not twice, because my work is in the paper and the numbers and a frame left crooked in a lobby mirror. When I step down, he watches me like objects have betrayed him, and it is embarrassingly satisfying. Sophia squeezes my fingers so hard my rings make crescents in my skin. Dante whispers an opening he wants me to learn. I flick his ear and he smiles because it's better than letting the adrenaline have me. The verdict comes in with the slow motion of a world breaking so we can see the cracks. Guilty. 25 years. Constantine resigns under the language of strategic retreat, and then faces charges dressed up as something polite, so the city won't have to admit it loved him for the wrong reasons. The fixer goes into witness protection with a new name, and a face that will always carry the knowledge of what he almost did to us. We go home and sit on the floor with pizza because war makes you hungry for absurdly ordinary things. He eats 2 slices and proclaims recovery. I eat 1.5 and proclaim adulthood. Sophia straightens a frame and then stops herself laughing. Sorry, she says. Habit. Never apologize for fighting chaos, I say. And she kisses my forehead because we both know that's exactly what I do when I do it loudly. Marry me properly, he says. Like the hospital proposal was an important footnote and not the headline he knows it was, where the only witnesses are invited on purpose. I look at Rosa, who hums a chord that sounds like a scent. I look at Dante, who moves a salt shaker like a knight and winks. I look at Sophia, who is already straightening the arrangement of chairs in her mind to maximize flow and minimize tears. Yes, I say, but no white. Never, he says, like he was going to set the dress on fire if I suggested it. We do it in the courtyard of his grandmother's building on a Sunday that smells like basil and memory. The guests are few and the food is many. He wears a suit that looks like someone tailored it to a promise. I wear midnight blue and shoes I can run in if the sky cracks. Sophia buys me a bouquet that uses the same crimson from the night war became public and makes it soft for a day that belongs to rebuilding. Dante tucks a knight into my bouquet without asking, and I leave it there because some men are allowed a little flourish. Rosa hums as she walks the perimeter, and I love that she cannot not work. His grandmother blesses us in Italian that she doesn't translate because some things should be secrets spoken over your head and soaked into your hair. He places a band on my finger, and I feel the weight like an anchor and a wing. I promise to meet you in hell every day, I say, voice steady, and build a heaven there with you. I promise to save you a seat forever, he returns. And I am simultaneously in a rain-soaked car and in a courtyard full of summer air. And both are true, because the world is large enough to hold the beginning and the now inside the same hour. We kiss like we're writing a new rule, and the city doesn't argue. After, we eat too much, and Sophia straightens a string of lights, and Dante makes a toast that involves chess so aggressively that even he laughs at himself. Rosa hums while she dances with a man who looks at her like a prayer he didn't know he still knew. We could have ended there, many stories would. But some lives refuse to be merely a story, and ours is one of them. Power abhors a vacuum, and the fall of a faction creates wind that tries to push everyone into new shapes. We do not let the wind decide. The empire he built with his father's money and his own hunger becomes something else under our hands. The legitimate businesses remain pillars. The gray becomes clean where it can, efficient where it can't. The black stays under the floorboards, adhered to with rules that will never make the newspaper, but keep our people breathing. I manage what can be measured. He manages what can be felt. Together, we create a ledger that includes things that don't balance until you look at them sideways. Loyalty, fear, mercy, promise. We expand not for greed, but for insurance. New shipping routes that avoid ports that became compromises under old men. Clubs in 2 cities where the staff call me boss and mean it as compliment, not insult. Politicians who learn the art of gratitude because we teach them ethics they can live with or fear they can't. Rosa builds a security apparatus that answers to my voice first, because he loves me enough to make the thing that protects us obey the person most likely to put my safety ahead of legacy. She hums when she's pleased with a new protocol. She hums when she's furious and needs to turn it into something useful. The hum becomes the song in the walls, our house's heartbeat. Dante slides nights across every conference table we own and delights in making bad metaphors that work anyway. He never lets a decision leave the room without being named in 3 languages: cost, consequence, opportunity. He quotes grandmasters until I quote them back at him and watch his smile bloom like I just told. Him he matters in a way that has nothing to do with my brother-in-law's ring. Sophia runs our charitable arm with a ferocity that would terrify a lesser city. She straightens frames in schools where the children pretend not to notice donations that allow them to eat. And then she sits on tiny chairs and listens until she hears the plan inside a 7-year-old's breath. She calls me to tell me about a girl who organizes her pencils by color because it calms her, and I understand too well. We keep our promises. We do not apologize for the throne we built out of fire and paper, and a year's worth of breath held and finally released. 6 months later, the city looks different when seen from the balcony where he first handed me a mug without asking for anything in return. The skyline has the same bones, but the lights have learned new rhythms. We stand at the glass and watch the empire we made breathe. The expansion plans are on the table, a map spread open with new routes circled and old feuds crossed out like bad habits. I make notes in the margins because I don't respect borders when a better line exists. He watches me work with the kind of hunger that belongs equally to lovers and kings. You were right that night, I say without looking up. We are going to hell. He sets his hand on the back of my neck and rubs his thumb against the place where my hairline begins like he owns the map of me and consults it whenever he's lost. And I'm not scared anymore. Good. He turns my chair and kneels so we are eye to eye, even with his body still recovering from a fight he won by being too stubborn to die. What do we build next? A hell worth ruling, I say, and we smile like new gods would if they were honest about where they learned divinity. He kisses me like a promise we keep by staying, not by leaving. Outside, the city trembles because it knows what comes after a fall. Inside, we plan tomorrow's sins and call them strategies because the words we use to talk about power are a taxonomy that only matters until someone like us throws out the chart and draws a new one. On a shelf near the door, a black card sits framed, not as a relic but as a compass. The number means nothing now. The man does. The girl who kept it in a Bible has become the woman who writes her own scripture and allows no one else to interpret it for her. I told him to go to hell. He asked me to save him a seat. I did. He saved me one too. We do not repent. We rule. The frame above the mantel is straight. Sophia made sure of it at dinner, and then apologized twice. Dante left a knight tucked behind a vase where only I will find it. Rosa hummed those 3 notes while she locked the terrace doors, a last lullaby for a house that knows how to sleep with one eye open. The night is ours. The morning will be too.